Hello and welcome to my channel Samvada. This is the first episode of Samyaati, a series of travel stories about temples and cultural landmarks of India. In this first episode, we shall be doing a video tour of Badami, where we will visit some of the earliest rock-cut cave temples as well as structural temples built during the reign of Chalukyas. Thank you so much for joining me. Badami is a small town in North Karnataka, about 450 kilometers from Bengaluru and roughly about 100 kilometers towards the northeast from the city of Hubballi. Originally known as Vatapi, Badami is situated in the Malaprabha river valley and is the erstwhile capital of early Chalukyas who ruled a large part of ancient India from the middle of the 6th century until the middle of the 8th century. Today, Badami is famous for a series of rock-cut cave temples, structural temples and other monuments believed to be some of the oldest in India, along with a few other nearby historical sites such as Aihole, Pattadakkal, Mahakuta and Banashankari. Due to its geographical importance of being a fertile river valley and having a natural fortification on three sides, Badami has always sustained importance under various later rulers such as Kalyani Chalukyas, Vijayanagaras, Adil Shahis, as well as the Marathas. Badami town is on the left bank of an artificial lake named Agastya Tirtha, surrounded by rugged bluffs built into forts on the northern as well as southern sides. It is on the south fort where the four cave temples are present, and this is where we begin our journey. Excavated in the late 6th century, two of these temples are dedicated to Lord Vishnu, one to Lord Shiva and the fourth to Jain Tirthankaras. These temples are linked to each other by flights of stairs with intermediate terraces offering beautiful views of the town as well as the lake. We first go to the cave temple 1 dedicated to Lord Shiva. This is the map of the temple showing 14 columns spread across 4 different rows. We are welcomed to the temple by an imposing 18-armed Nataraja, a dancing form of Shiva sculpted onto the rock face directly onto the right of the temple's entrance. Shown with detailed matted hair and an oval halo, Nataraja has one arm across the chest in Gajahasta Mudra, and many other arms holding weapons such as a battle axe or parasu, a trident or a trishula, as well as a drum or a damaru. Two rare hands hold a serpent, and other hands are in various Natya mudras or dance poses. The sculpture also depicts a Ganesha as well as a Nandi on either side of Nataraja. As we enter the temple through 4 columns, all of which are carved right within the cave, inside the veranda onto the right is a mesmerizing sculpture of Ardhanarishvara, a form of Shiva which shows union of male and female in a single body as two halves of the same truth. Here, the deity has Shiva's half on the right and Parvati is shown on the left in Tribhanga pose with 3 bends. Ardhanarishvara is holding a veena and is accompanied by a female attendant holding a jeweled casket. Nandi is shown in the background along with Bhringi, who is shown only in bones and without flesh as per the story of Ardhanarishvara. Opposite to this, onto the left of the veranda is a sculpture of another dual form of Shiva known as Harihara. If Ardhanarishvara was a half-man, half-woman form, Harihara represents both Vishnu known as Hari and Shiva known as Hara. Here Harihara is shown holding a conch or a shankha in his left hand and a battle axe or a parasu coiled with a snake in his right hand. Lord Harihara is flanked on either side by divine goddesses along with vehicles or vahanas of Shiva and Vishnu. Lakshmi and Garuda are shown on the left, which is Vishnu's half, while Shiva's half on the right shows Parvati and Nandi. These two forms of Shiva are some of the most difficult ones to execute in sculpture. because Ardhanarishvara form combines male and female anatomies whose proportions are totally different into a single body with a combination of poses, while Harihara's iconography has two deities in one and presents an equally difficult challenge to represent various details so that it shows both of them. Another interesting aspect of these sculptures is that these both convey the paradoxes of duality present in Hinduism. As Ardhanarishvara shows syncretism of Shiva and Shakti philosophies, Harihara shows fusion of Shaiva and Vaishnava philosophies. It should also be noted that the Harihara sculpture shown here is the oldest surviving Harihara depiction anywhere in the world. Next to Harihara, on the outer wall of the cave is a sculpture of a Dwarapalaka, or a guard holding a trident. As we look up, carved on the ceiling of the veranda over the central bay is a magnificent Nagaraja with a coiled serpent body surrounding a human torso having 5 serpent hoods. 2 more rows of columns lead us to a mandapa and the Garbhagriha at the rear end of the temple, which houses a monolithic linga on a pitha. A separately carved Nandi, possibly a later insert, is present in front. From here, a small flight of stairs lead us to Cave Temple 2, dedicated to Lord Vishnu. Elevated on a plinth with a frieze of Ganas and 4 columns, this is a smaller of the both Vishnu temples. We can see this huge cliff within which this temple was excavated. This is the map of the temple, which is similar to the cave one and has 14 columns as well. As we enter the temple through columns, we are greeted on the right side of the veranda with Vishnu in Trivikrama form, which he takes during Vamana Avtara. Here Vishnu, or Trivikrama, meaning the conqueror of the 3 worlds, is shown with one leg kicked up high, symbolizing him conquering the 3 worlds, earth, sky, and the underworld. Trivikrama has 8 arms, 7 of them holding the attributes in the following order from right to the left of the idol. We see Gada, or a mace, which is named Kaumodaki, a Bana, or an arrow, or the famous chakra, or the disc, called the Sudarshana chakra. Trivikrama also holds a sword, or a Khadga, which is named Nandaka. The next arm holds a Shankha, or a conch, known as Panchajanya. And then he holds a Dhanush, or a bow, named Kodanda. The next arm holds a Ketaka, or a shield. The remaining 8th arm on the left side is stretched out parallel to the raised leg, pointing towards a laughing face, probably Rahu. Vamana, a dwarf-like Brahmana holding an umbrella, is shown on the bottom right. There is a more detailed story in the sculpture, as it shows King Mahabali and his queen Vindhyavali with their Guru Shukracharya pouring water to Vamana, who is receiving the gift of 3 paces. Namuchi, the son of Mahabali, is shown holding the right leg of Trivikrama to stop him from measuring the 3 paces. The Varaha form of Vishnu, who is rescuing Bhudevi, is shown on the left of the veranda. Even in this temple, ceilings are carved with much detail. The central bay, showing a fish-spoked wheel, has swastika compositions on either side, one shown with flying couples. The temple interior has rows of columns leading to the Garbhagriha, which unfortunately does not have any murti inside. We climb a few more steps again to reach a broad paved terrace in front of Cave 3, which is the largest and the most elaborately carved early Chalukyan rock-cut monument. The size of the temple can be seen here in this map. There are about 25 columns totally of various shapes and decorations. The front facade of the temple, with 7 columns, is raised on a plinth divided by stairs into panels filled with pairs of ganas in lively dancing postures. On the right outer wall of the cave, we see another exquisitely sculpted Trivikrama as we saw in Cave 2. Here, the diminutive Vamana figure, who is part of the story, has been damaged. Opposite to this, on the left outer wall, is an 8-armed or Ashtabhuja Vishnu, with Narasimha Swami emerging from the Kiritam, or the crown. There are weapons in 7 of the 8 hands, namely Shankha or conch, a Ketaka or a shield, a Dhanush or a bow, a Khadga or sword, a Gada or a mace, Bana or an arrow, Sudarshana Chakra or a disc. The remaining 8th hand rests on his waist. As we enter the veranda, on the right, next to Trivikrama, is a 4-armed Ugra Narasimha Swami, a form of Vishnu with a leonine head leaning with his left hand on a club, which is now broken. On the adjacent wall, we see another enchanting Harihara. Here, the headdress is clearly shown divided into one half as Shiva's matted hair and the other half as Vishnu's crown. On the other side of the veranda, next to the Ashtabhuja Vishnu, is a majestic sculpture of Vishnu seated in Vaikunta on Sheshanaga, with the hoods of the serpent sheltering the god's crowned head. On the adjacent wall, we can see another sculpture of Varaha rescuing Bhudevi, as we saw in cave number 2. 1 foot of the deity can be seen placed on the coils of the serpent demon Adisesha. The ceiling bays are again amazingly decorated, with each bay showing a different deity. From the left, first we see Varuna with flying celestials. In the next bay, we see Brahma surrounded by Lokapalas. In the central bay, we can see Vishnu and Lakshmi surrounded by Dikpalas. The 4th bay shows Shiva and Parvati on Nandi with Ganesh, and Indra on his elephant Airavata surrounded by dancers and musicians can be seen in the 5th bay. On the eave of the ceiling, we can see this beautiful Garuda sculpture. The column capitals and friezes are also carved with various celestial beings. Capital brackets show embracing couples, while the friezes depict the scenes from the life of Krishna with cows and gopis, as well as scenes from Samudra Manthana or the ocean churn, etc. The rows of more beautifully sculpted columns, which also show purple veins running throughout the red sandstone, lead us to the Garbhagriha, where again unfortunately the Murti is missing. We also find some inscriptions in this temple. First one marking the consecration of this temple on November the 1st, 578 CE, on the auspicious day of Kartika Purnami. This inscription was issued by Mangalesha, half-brother of Chalukyan king Kirtivarma I. Another inscription on a column from the year 1554 preserves a record of the Vijayanagara period. From here, we ascend to the 4th and the final cave, where we also get a great view of the lake as well as the town from this terrace. This is cave 4, dedicated to Jaina Tirthankaras as well as Bhagavan Mahavira. This is the smallest of all the caves and also possibly the latest in the series. As in the earlier caves, even here, the front veranda is dominated by sculpted figures at either end. On the right is a figure of Parshvanatha Swami with a multi-headed cobra rising over his head, while on the left is a figure of Bahubali or Gomateshwara with vines wrapped around his legs. Inside the Garbhagriha, carved on the rear wall, is Bhagavan Mahavira, shown with a large halo, seated under a tree on a lion throne. He is surmounted by a triple-tiered umbrella and flanked by attendants fanning him with chamaras. As we come out of this temple, I noticed this nifty water drainage carved right within the cliff, and I pondered if this is a later addition or if it was built along with the temples. From here, we can see the Agastya Tirtha lake, the Badami town, as well as some of the sites we are going to visit. First would be the Yalama temple, and then we head over to an interesting archaeological museum which is along the way. And then we'll climb up to the North Fort, where we will first go to the Upper Shivalaya and then come down to the Lower Shivalaya. However, the first sight we notice as we descend from the cave temples is this red sandstone domed tomb built in the 17th century, when Badami was under the occupation of Bijapur Sultans. This tomb was erected by Malik Abdul Aziz, a local governor, in the memory of his wife. We can get a view of the Tirtha from an elevated spot here, and just a few paces to the west is Yalama temple. As per the inscription located on the temple's walls, it was built in the year 1139 CE during the reign of Jagadeka Malla, a Kalyani Chalukyan king, and it was originally a Vishnu temple. But now, this temple houses the idol of goddess Yalama. The beautiful pyramidal tower, or Vimana, has 4 superimposed tiers of sharply modelled kutas and chalas, which are relieved by ornate kudus, or gavakshas. As we walk northwards through the town, via a narrow path and an arched gate, there is an archaeological museum with a colonnaded facade that imitates the cave temples. The museum houses a collection of stone sculptures and other artifacts gathered from nearby sites. One of the remarkable sculptures is an 8th century stone representation of Lajja Gauri, a lotus-headed goddess of fertility shown in a birth-giving posture. More information about this sculpture can be found on this panel. As we trek up to the North Fort, rising almost 200 meters above the houses of Badami, we climb up a stepped path through a spectacular ravine flanked by cliffs. Just before arriving at the top, we pass by these 3 circular granaries, one of which is now damaged. This east-facing temple is known as Upper Shivalaya, and it stands at the highest point of the North Fort. Its prominent location and early Dravidian architecture suggests that this is the earliest structural monument in Badami. There is a figure of Narasimha Swami killing Hiranyakashipu on the wall of this temple. There are some other figures as well, such as Krishna lifting Govardhanagiri and Krishna dancing on Kariya, which are not seen here. The lower Shivalaya can be seen from here, with only the Garbhagriha, Vimana, and the octagonal Shikhara still standing. Coming down from the fort and walking along the path beside to the tank to the east, we come to a garden housing a complex of temples, all with layered pyramidal towers characteristic of the 11th and 12th centuries. These are the northern Bhutanatha group of temples, all of which face southwards towards the tank. A few meters beyond, on the eastern bank of the tank, is the Bhutanatha temple, with several smaller shrines clustering around the main temple, which faces west towards the water. While the other temples with layered pyramidal towers are dated to the 11th century later Chalukya era, the main Dravida-style temple with a multi-storied tower capped with a kuta is attributed to the 8th century. With this, we've come to the end of this video tour of Badami. There are several other points of interest I have not covered, such as the Jambulinga temple, Virupaksha temple, rock carvings to the rear of the Bhutanatha temple, Mallagetti Shivalaya, and some other inscriptions, etc. in the interest of time. But I hope everyone will get to visit and enjoy all of these amazing cultural heritages left behind by the great rulers of our country. Thank you and happy traveling. This video is also available in more languages, Hindi, Kannada, as well as Telugu. Please watch, share, and subscribe to my channel for more such videos. Thank you so much for joining me.